Well, this afternoon, we're still in New York with Swami Abhedananda, and the Vedanta Society is now legally registered as an organization. If you're following along with your book, it's page 469 in God Lived With Them, halfway down the page.
There it is.
Okay, from 1901 onwards, Abhedananda's audiences increased to 600, and the number of students in his yoga class increased so much that he had to give the class twice a day. To accommodate the overflowing audiences, this society rented Carnegie Lyceum for Abhedananda's lectures. The New York Sun described Abhedananda's lecture given on the first Sunday of 1901. Swami Abhedananda lectured in the Carnegie Lyceum yesterday afternoon on the religions needed for the 20th century. He spoke of tuning the molecules of the brain cells to harmonize with the vibrations of the cosmic mind, and so gaining power. And he said that the mind and matter were not dual entities, but the subjective and objective manifestations of the unknown. The 20th century needs a religion, he said, with no scheme for salvation, no need for heaven or hell, no fear of eternal punishment. The 20th century needs a religion free from sacerdotal institutions and free from all books, scriptures, and personalities. The 20th century needs a religion with a concept of God, not personal, not impersonal, but beyond both, a God whose supreme aspect will harmonize with the ultimate reality of the universe. The 20th century religion must accept the ultimate conclusions of all the philosophies of the world. Okay. On 22nd June 1901, Abhedananda left New York City for Buffalo, New York, to see the Pan American Exposition. After visiting Cleveland and Chicago, he went to San Francisco. On the 1st of August 1901, the San Francisco Chronicle published this news. Swami Abhedananda, who arrived on Monday from New York, was the guest of honor at a reception given last evening at the residence of Dr. M.H. Logan. The Swami is a dignified, intellectual-looking East Indian. He speaks English fluently, and his thoughts, as he gives them utterance, are so framed as to form an axiom. On 6 August, Abhedananda left for Shanti Ashram, a Vedanta retreat near the San Antonio Valley on Mount Hamilton, 20 miles from Lick Observatory. This is, San Francisco still owns this Shanti Ashram, and they have an open function at it every May? The last Saturday of April, but check the San Francisco schedule. It's one of the only times you can go out to Shanti Ashram, and it's very, very beautiful in a very natural way. It was a quiet place and favorable for spiritual disciplines. Turiyananda and Brahmachari Gurudas received him cordially, but Abhedananda stayed for only 4 days as water was scarce and the facilities were insufficient. At that time, they had to carry all the water in with horse cart. And I'm not sure if do they have a well now?
Not that they use.
Not that, yeah. They don't have a well that they use. I'm talking to Swami C, who's sitting here and was in San Francisco for many years. From Shanti Ashram, Abhedananda returned to the San Francisco area, giving a lecture on Vedanta philosophy. On 6 September at the University of California, Berkeley. Abhedananda said, on one side, Vedanta philosophy gives expression to the highest ideal of all philosophy, and on the other, it gives a foundation to a system of religion which is the most rationalistic of all systems, and it harmonizes with the ultimate conclusions of modern science and philosophy. From San Francisco, Abhedananda went to Los Angeles and then returned to New York on 7 October 1901. After visiting, he visited Yosemite Falls, Salt Lake City, Colorado Springs, Chicago, Toronto, and Thousand Island Park, New York. Thousand Island Park is also where Swami Vivekananda lived for a while with, where inspired talks were the talks that he was given, and he had Nirvikalpa Samadhi there. You can visit that through the Eastside New York Center, Ramakrishna Vivekananda Vedanta Society, but only for 1 month in August, I think. You have to contact them. He continued giving lectures and classes as usual. During the summer recess, Abhedananda traveled to various places on the East Coast and then left for a European tour on 7 August 1902. He landed at Liverpool, England, and then went to Glasgow, Scotland. After visiting a few places in England, Abhedananda crossed the English Channel and traveled extensively in France and Switzerland. He returned to New York in the early part of October 1902. After the summer recess, Abhedananda arranged a memorial meeting for Swami Vivekananda, who had passed away at Bellarmont on 4 July 1902. Abhedananda read letters from Saradananda and Premananda regarding Swamiji's death. Mrs. Oli Bull, Miss Josephine MacLeod, and others paid their homage to Vivekananda. The annual meeting of the Society was held on 22 January 1903. The progress report was good. The Society was found sound financially, and membership had increased. On 15 May, when the summer recess had begun, Abhedananda left for Europe and traveled widely in Italy, Switzerland, and Belgium. He returned to New York on 6 October 1903. Because the Vedanta movement was growing rapidly in the United States, the Ramakrishna Order sent Swami Nirmalananda to America to help Abhedananda. Nirmalananda arrived in New York on 12 October 1903 and began to give classes in December. On 4 May 1904, the Society was moved to 62 West 71st Street. The building had a spacious hall that could accommodate 300 people. On 24 May 1904, Abhedananda went to St. Louis, Missouri, to attend the World's Fair, where he arranged for an exhibition of Vedanta literature in the book fair. He also gave a lecture at the Webster Grove Society on Indian women and took a boat trip on the Mississippi River. On 16 June, he returned to New York. On 28 June 1904, Abhedananda again left for Europe.
Jeez.
He reached Holland on 8 July and visited several places in Amsterdam. From there, he went to Munich, then the capital of Bavaria. During his European tours, he visited museums and places of historical importance, and sometimes climbed mountains. He was very fond of adventure. On 16 October, he returned to New York after visiting Paris and London.
Jeez.
He was quite a traveler. The year 1905 was significant for the Vedanta Society. On 30 January, another Vedanta Society was inaugurated in Brooklyn, which Nirmalananda took charge of. On the 1st of February, Abhedananda left for Toronto and lectured at the Historical Society. He was interviewed by a reporter of the Toronto News, met many distinguished people, and then after visiting Niagara Falls, returned to New York on the 7th of February. On 27 March, he went to Washington, D.C. to form a Vedanta society. He returned to New York on the following day. I'm not sure we established our society then. On 29 June, Abhedananda and Professor Herschel C. Parker of Columbia University, then president of the New York Vedanta Society, went for a long tour from Alaska to Mexico. They reached Alaska via Toronto, Fort William, Winnipeg, and Vancouver. In Alaska, they were Governor Brady's guests. The governor's sister showed them the deserted homes of Native Americans and other important sites. On the way to Mexico, they saw the Portland Fair in Oregon and met Swami Chetanananda in San Francisco and visited Swami Chetanananda in Los Angeles. They also visited the Grand Canyon in Arizona and at last reached Mexico City on the 14th of September. It was there that Abhedananda met a Spanish gentleman who had read his books and who surprised the Swami by showing him a copy of Reincarnation that he kept in his pocket. He asked Abhedananda to stay longer in Mexico, give a course of lectures, and establish a center. Abhedananda returned to New York on the 27th of October by way of St. Louis. There he gave an informal talk on Vedanta to an audience of 50 people. On Tuesdays, during the fall, he lectured at the Brooklyn Institute of Arts and Science on India and her people. And on Sundays in New York, he gave a lecture series on the great saviors of the world. In this series, he pointed out, if we cannot recognize the divinity in the prophets of other nations, in the saviors of other people, then we have not realized the divinity of our own prophet and have not understood the eternal truth of the unity of divine being under the variety of names and forms. If a mother cannot recognize her son when he changes the color of his garment or puts on the dress of a foreigner, I am sure that she is not a true mother. Similarly, I am sure that the Christian who sees divinity in Christ alone does not recognize his own master when he comes in the form of Buddha or Krishna, has not realized the divinity of Jesus the Christ. All these prophets are messengers of God, are great. Each one was commissioned by the Almighty to deliver his message. Each one of them is a glorious Son of God, a perfected soul, manifested for the good of humanity, to establish righteousness and to destroy evil. That's almost directly out of the Gita. In every age I manifest a body when evil grows great and good grows less, and I will come again. Okay, now, 6 months in India. On the 27th of January, 1906, Nirmalananda returned to India, and on the 15th of April, Swami Abhedananda was sent to New York to assist Abhedananda. Then, after working and traveling 10 years in the West, Abhedananda felt an urge to visit India for a short period. The Swami left New York on the 16th of May, 1906. After changing ships at London, landed in Colombo, Sri Lanka on 16 June. Ramakrishnananda, Paramananda, Barrister Tyagaraja, and Angarika Dharmapala, the Buddhist representative at the Chicago Parliament of Religions, received him at the port. On the 18th of June, the local Vivekananda Society honored him with a great reception. There, Abhedananda was delighted to meet Ananda Kumar Swami, who later became a great exponent of Indian arts. After visiting the Tooth Temple of Buddha in Kandy and the Bo Tree in Anuradhapuram, all three swamis arrived at the South Indian port of Tuticorin. Abhedananda gave many lectures on this tour. He received a warm welcome wherever he went. From Tuticorin, Abhedananda and his party went to Tinnevelly and then to Madurai, Trichinopoly, Padukota, Tanjore, Kumbakonam, and at last arrived in Madras, now Chennai, on the 15th of July. The citizens of Madras gave him a wonderful reception, and then, after resting for a few days, the Swami and his party visited Bangalore, Mysore, the Sringeri Math, which had been established by Shankara. After traveling in South India, Abhedananda reached Puri on the 23rd of August by train from Madras. Brahmananda, Shivananda, and Premananda received him at the station. And then, after visiting the Lord Jagannath, they arrived at Shashi Niketan. On 9 September, Abhedananda and other swamis arrived at Howrah Station, where a large crowd, including several prominent people of Calcutta, were waiting to welcome him. He stayed in Calcutta for a week, and a memorable reception was given for him at the town hall on 12th September. In reply, Abhedananda paid a glowing tribute to Swamiji. Swami Vivekananda was not an ordinary man. He was the patriot saint of modern India. He may be called an incarnation of divine wisdom in this age of commercialism. It was he who turned the table of commercialism in a foreign land like America. He was the pioneer, the first preacher, the first Hindu sannyasin who went to the United States, carrying his master's message and the gospel of truth as taught by our ancient rishis. Vivekananda represented the Vedic religion, the Sanatana Dharma, which we may call a universal religion. He achieved great success because he preached nothing but the eternal truth. Abhedananda was happy to see him and other devotees of the Master. One day he visited his mother and went to Kalighat to offer worship with her. He then went to Belur Math and stayed with his brother disciples until the 4th of October. Abhedananda was delighted to attend Durga Puja after many years, knowing the need for more swamis in the West. The Belur Math authorities decided to send Paramananda to America with Abhedananda. On the 5th of October, Abhedananda and Paramananda left for Bombay by train. On the way, they stopped at Patna, Varanasi, Allahabad, Agra, Alwar, Ahmedabad, and finally arrived at Bombay on the 30th of October, 1906. Now, back in America, 1907 to 1921, this is a long time in America. On the 10th of November, 1906, Abhedananda and Paramananda left Bombay and arrived in New York during the early part of 1907. When he returned to America, Abhedananda reorganized the activities of the society. He sent Bodhananda to take charge of the Pittsburgh Vedanta Center and engaged Paramananda to conduct services at the New York Center. He kept himself free to lecture in various places, as well as to revive the Vedanta movement in London. During the birthday celebration of Sri Ramakrishna, Abhedananda said, "The keynote of the life teachings of Buddha was active self-sacrifice, while the mission of Krishna to the world was to teach divine love. The great work of Ramakrishna was to bring the message of harmony. He came not to reform, but to unite. He pointed out the wondrous fact that the religions of the world are not antagonistic in themselves, but they are essentially one. Behind all religious doctrines and dogmas, the Master discovered one grand eternal truth. History has no record of such a saint. On the 2nd of March, 1907, a house was purchased for the Vedanta Society at 105 West 80th Street in New York City. It was a 5-story building with 2 rooms on each floor. The rooms on the ground floor were converted into a single room that served as a lecture hall. Some of the upstairs rooms were rented to others in order to maintain the society. During this time, the members of the society decided to establish a retreat site for students of Vedanta. Accordingly, a plot of 370 acres was bought in the Berkshire Hills, not far from the picturesque little village of West Cornwall, Connecticut. It was 107 miles from New York, and it took about 4 hours to reach. The Berkshire Retreat was duly inaugurated by Abhedananda in March 1907, and he remarked, "The ashram looks like a fairyland." On the 26th of June, Abhedananda left for London, leaving Paramananda in charge of the society. In the second week of July, the Swami began his classes on yoga and lectures on Vedanta in different locations around London. He returned to New York on the 6th of September in 1907. On the 29th of January 1908, Abhedananda left for London again. Sister Nivedita, Vivekananda's Irish disciple, visited Abhedananda many times and had discussed the difficulties of her work in India. On the 1st of July, he inaugurated the Vedanta Conduit Street. Sister Nivedita spoke first. Then Abhedananda lectured on the history and objectives of Vedanta philosophy. During this trip, Swami visited Paris for several days and then returned to New York on the 21st of August. So that would have been the Vedanta Society in Ireland, which we still have. I believe it's in Dublin. In September 1908, Abhedananda went on a lecture tour in Chicago and then Denver, Colorado. He returned to New York on the 24th of October. Towards the end of 1908, one of his disciples, Sister Avamya, I've never heard that word before, founded a Vedanta Society in Sydney, Australia. I thought this was only started within the last 30 years. Paramananda started a Vedanta center in Boston, thus managing 2 centers. When not traveling, Abhedananda stayed either in New York or at the Berkshire Retreat. On the 29th of February 1909, Abhedananda returned to London. After staying there for a month, he traveled to Paris and founded a Vedanta Society. After a month of giving lectures and classes, Abhedananda returned to London on the 6th of May. On the following day, Frank Dvorak, a celebrated Czechoslovakian artist, came to the Vedanta Center to see Abhedananda. At Abhedananda's request, Dvorak later painted oil portraits of Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, which are still preserved in the Ramakrishna Vedanta Mat in Calcutta. Abhedananda returned to New York on the 26th of June. Another of Abhedananda's important contributions was an Indo-American club, which the Swami formed in New York in 1909, so that Indian students could get together and come in close contact with American friends. For most of 1910 and 1911, Abhedananda lived in the Berkshire Retreat, and only occasionally was he in New York. He lectured regularly on Sundays and gave classes in yoga and meditation. Abhedananda's long absences from New York caused the income of the society to drop, and most of the rooms had to be rented out to meet the expenses. Meanwhile, Paramananda permanently moved to Boston. Abhedananda moved permanently to the Berkshire Retreat on May 5, 1911. On the 12th of June, he wrote to Brahmananda and asked him to send another Swami for the New York Society. Accordingly, in 1912, Bodhananda was appointed the head of the New York Society. This is all the history of how the societies switched around and moved, and they went to various places. From 1912 to 1919, Abhedananda lived mostly in the Berkshire Retreat and occasionally went on a lecture tour. Mrs. Mary LePage, Sister Shivani, wrote in her book, Swami Abhedananda in America, "The ashram in the Berkshires, 370 acres of rolling pasture lands and hills, a brook and several springs, 2 old New England houses needing only renovation and some remodeling, barns, carriage houses, sheds, all made to fit the purpose the Swami had in mind. The place within a few years was self-supporting. Feed for stock raised on the place, fruits of many kinds, and a splendid kitchen garden kept the table well supplied for summer guests who came and went the season long. The place was kept very plain, everything simple, and the Swami's routine for the workers mainly voluntary and in the line with training and aptitudes. There always was to be found among the students someone who had had training as a carpenter or knew something of the trades. The place was kept in good repair without hired labor. Always there was hard work to be done, always some addition being made, some project underway, nothing ever finished. Season after season, the work went on. If ever Karma Yoga maintained a school for study, such was here." Sounds very much like the centers today. Abhedananda was not only highly intellectual, a great orator and prolific writer, but he was also a hard-working, practical person. He taught his students to harmonize action and contemplation in their lives. There were many interesting entries in his diary in 1912. "I planted with LePage and Whitney Alaska peas, cauliflower, and cabbage seeds in the garden. Started the engine with LePage, and it worked all right. Washed the dogs and cleaned their houses. Held classes in the evening. Worked with Frank at the stable. Picked pears and apples and packed them. I worked in the chicken house foundation with Whitney in the evening. Started the engine at 1:30 and cut wood till 2:30.
My God.
This is a couple days in the life of Swami Abhedananda. On February 1913, Abhedananda went to Jacksonville, Florida, and gave 3 lectures in a Methodist church, and went to Atlanta, Georgia, to deliver several lectures at the Psychological Society, Unitarian Church, and Ethical Society. In Atlanta, the Swami said, "Vedanta is the most ancient and the most modern of philosophies. Vedanta stands for no special creed, philosophy, or religion, but teaches accumulated wisdom. It stresses the Delphic oracle of Socrates, Know thyself. It teaches that all progress is the evolution of God involved in man. Evolution presupposes involution. For the next few years, Abhedananda mainly stayed in the Berkshire retreat and did lecture tours in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Minneapolis, Denver, Hartford, and other places. Now, we're going to stop there for today. We're going to get another insight into him because we're going to get a reminiscence of Pragyananda. Any questions or comments on Abhedananda's prolific encounters in the United States? No comments? All right. So, this Saturday, Swami Sarvadevananda will again give his class on the Bhagavad Gita, and his lecture on Sunday will be 3 Enemies of Spiritual Life. The next Wednesday, we'll have this class again, and we'll find out what Pragyananda had to say. Okay. Good to see you all. Stay cool. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.